a marshmallow mug with a cupcake top. Super cute, perfect for a birthday gift or change the yarn and it can be a Christmas cupcake, or change it and it can be a Valentine's cupcake. Hey, it's Denise from loom.com, and for this project you're gonna need a 24 peg loom, 4 yards of worsted weight yarn for the brim, 13 yards for the top, scissors, needle, stitch markers, optional beads if you like it. Alright, let's begin. I'm using 6 stitch markers that I placed every 4 pegs. You could do this if you like, and I will put a link in the description. And 1 single strand of worsted weight yarn that I'm going to attach to my anchor peg using a slip knot, and then take the working yarn between the first and last peg, and either direction that you knit is going to work fine, has no effect on the project. And then you're going to wrap every peg. Now I'm going to use the U-wrap for this cast on. You can do any cast on that you're comfortable with, okay? And so this is the U-wrap, and to do this stitch you're going to half wrap the peg and take the bottom loop over the top. Half wrap, bottom over the top, and just keep going. You need to do all 24 pegs. When you're done knitting that last peg, which is peg 24, you're done with the cast on and you're ready for rows 1 through 5, where you're going to knit 2, purl 2. You already know how to do those 2 knit stitches, so here is 1 and 2, and then for the purl stitch you're going to take the working yarn and put it under the existing loop, take your hook and put it over on top and scoop up to create a new loop. You're going to take the existing loop off the peg and put your new loop on. Let me do that one more time. You're going to take the working yarn and put it under the existing loop from the top with your hook. You're going to scoop up and create a new loop. Take the old loop off the peg, put the new one on, and pull. Now you just repeat the knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2 until you've gone around the loom and you've done all 24 pegs. And remember that you need 5 rows in total. While you guys knit, I want to take the time to say thank you to Carol Maple from PromiseLearningATL.com, Elise Petron, Penny Pitchard, Kristen Stone, Barbara Ledger, and Joel Gittleman for covering the cost of closed captioning. These folks are super sweet for doing this for this community, and I can't thank them enough. Once you finish knitting that peg 24, you can now take the knot off the anchor peg because your yarn is secure and you don't need it anymore. And then you're ready for row 6, where you're basically just going to knit the row. You knit 24 pegs, and once you've done all 24 pegs using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch, you're then ready to change colors. You're done with your brim, you're ready for the top, and now you change the color to the color that you want for the top. And by the way, you could use any color, it could be the same, right? You don't have to do what I do. I'm not the boss of you. You get to choose whatever you want to do. And in my case, I'm using a simple knot to secure the yarn, and I do 2 knots. And then you're ready to knit rows 7 through 9, where you're basically just going to knit these 3 rows, and you can do that using your new color or be a rebel and make it all one color. There you go, 3 rows. Now you're going to switch over to the purl stitch, and you're going to do rows 10 through 14, which are 5 rows using the purl stitch. Once you finish those 5 rows, super easy, you're just going to do those 3 rows of knit stitches again. Once you finish rows 15 through 17, you're then ready for rows 18 through 21. And for those 4 rows, you're going to do purl stitches. And while you guys knit, I want to take the time to say thank you to Lorena Ruiz for her continued support of this channel. If you happen to be interested in my hook cover, I will give you a link in the description for that project. All right, you should be looking something like this by now, and then you're ready for rows 22 through 24, which is just 3 rows of knit stitches. Once you're done with those 3 rows, then you just have to do 3 more rows of the purl stitch. Ta-da! Just these last 3 rows, and then we can move on to the cast off. Once you finish those 3 rows, then take your working yarn and you're going to go around your loom one full time. Get your scissors and you're going to cut the drawstring. And then you're going to take your hook and with your working yarn under that first loop, you're going to scoop it up as if you were going to do a purl stitch, but you got to feed it completely through and take the working yarn behind the next peg in front of the one that follows, which is the 3rd peg, and scoop it up and feed it through. Then take it behind the next peg. So basically what you're doing is that you're feeding your working yarn through every other peg, right? So you take it behind to secure it. What we're doing is the flat drawstring cast off, and hang with me because I do change up the second part just a little bit. Once you fed that working yarn through 12 of those pegs, then you can start removing only the loops that you fed the working yarn through. Once you finish that, then you're going to work on the loops that are still on the peg. So get your working yarn and you're going to secure it to the anchor peg. And then you're going to take that working yarn and you're going to wrap it around your loom. Now, I made mine a little short, so go around once and a little bit, like a quarter, 1 1/4 around the loom. And then I'm going to make a little knot on this just so I can tell this one string from the other. You don't have to do this. And then you're going to take your hook, and just like before, you're going to feed it through these leftover loops, which again are every other, right? You have some empty pegs. So just make sure that you get every loop. Okay, so I want to emphasize, in case you didn't notice, that when we added the working yarn back to the anchor peg, this is a whole other strand from the one we were working with the first set of loops, right? This second set of loops is using a separate strand of yarn. All right, so once you have them all, you can take the knot off the anchor peg and then take the loops off the pegs. You make sure that every loop has working yarn through it, and then just take the loops off the peg, and now your project is free. So put the loom to the side, and now you see that you have multiple drawstrings, right? And be careful that when you're pulling, you don't pull to the point that you pull one of the drawstrings out. So pay attention to that, okay? And here you see the 2 layers of the cast off. There's one under the other. That's what makes it flatter than the regular cast off. If you want to just use a regular gathered cast off, you can do that too, okay? And then make sure you stretch your stitches. This is super important. Otherwise, the hat's going to look really funky. Next, we're going to work on something so many of you just don't like doing, and that's tightening the cast on. And you don't have to be worried as long as you pay attention to this right here. That is the strand that was connected to the anchor peg. Don't start there. You don't start with that strand. Instead, you start with the loop that is right next to it, right here, that one. It is next to the strand that was tied to the anchor peg, which is the beginning of your cast on drawstring, right? So pull on it and you see that it's not this part, right? So as long as you can tell the difference between the two, it goes super easy. As you pull on your loop, it tightens, right? The next one tightens and you can tell the difference. You can see how one loop is tightening the other. And as you pull one loop, it'll tell you where the next one is. Guys, this technique is so worth the practice. And I promise you that practice makes perfect. So the more times you do this, the better you get at it. If anything, try on really tiny hats. Try the technique so that if anything goes wrong, you don't get frustrated. And by the way, the little bell you hear are my cats in the background. They have to get involved in everything because that's just who they are. So yeah, anyway, tighten your cast on. It makes all the sense in the world. It makes everything more beautiful, I promise. Once you reach the end of the hat, you'll see why I tell you not to start here, because you can see how I can pull all the excess yarn right from this end. So that's why you want to end where you started the cast on. You see there, I pulled all that excess yarn and then I put it through that last loop and I make a knot. And as long as you don't over tighten your stitches, it turns out great and stretchy. All right, the last thing I'm gonna do is, well, the second to last thing I'm gonna do is to make a pom pom, and I just use 3 of my fingers to make the pom pom. And then after that, I added the beads, and to add the beads, I sew them on to some of the mugs, and some of them I actually just used a glue gun, a low temperature glue gun, which actually went a whole lot faster than when I was sewing the beads on. Or you could leave the beads out, or you can add buttons, or you could just use some floss, some colored embroidery floss to add what would look like sprinkles to your cupcake. There is so many different things that you can do. But anyway, to make your pom-pom, as you can see, I just wrapped a whole lot of times, then tied it, cut it, and fed it through the top little hole that I had not closed completely. And then I'm just going to go ahead and give it a good haircut to make it nice and cute. And there's the little hat. Just cut off the excess yarn and put it on your marshmallow mug, and I'll put a link in the description for those marshmallow mugs. Alright guys, that's it. This is such a fun project. Take the time to do it. Go ahead and give me some comments, like, and if you haven't already done so, of course, subscribe to the channel so we can loom again. Alright guys, bye.